thank you for the kind introduction. Usually the MCs don't get this much billing, so I'm very grateful, somewhat exaggerated. But what an honor to be the moderator for this session. We heard this very interesting story from Professor Young-kee Kim. When we have these keynote lectures, we're usually, they're very dry and academic, but I thought this gave us a much broader perspective of the work, the very serious, I wrote it down, experimental particle physicist, the work that she's doing. But we also got to know a little bit about her past, her passion for dancing, singing, and gardening, and all these other things. So we get a much fuller picture of who Professor Young-kee Kim is. So it's really, I think, a privilege for all of us. It looks like you have been away from Korea since graduate school, but maybe you can tell us how often you visit Korea. Do you visit your hometown? How do you stay connected? Is this important?
I left Korea 1986. So I would say the first 5 years or so, well, I was doing my research in Japan, so that was very close to the home. So it's easy to come at that time. So it's more once a year type. But I think I continue to come roughly once a year. In the last 20 years or so, usually come for business, meaning that some institutions, the laboratories, the university here, they need some advice. So I played a number of advisory roles. So I come for that region, and I come home. Then while I'm in Korea, I have time to spend with my family and friends. For fun.
Visit Korea.
We, for my, important thing is seeing each other. So it's, we get together, have a nice meal and talking, and so it takes a day to go through, every family. We have now it's, as I said, about 30 people. So usually when I come here, the whole families get together. But not at once. Usually it's one group in Seoul, one group in hometown. So I have to be in two places. So one evening one place, another evening another place. So it's more kind of talking what's going on, everybody. Then my nephews, if they want to have a one-on-one discussion, so we go out for coffee, and my nieces as well. They want to talk to me about their problems a little bit. So it's not necessarily I can give good advice, but for them just want to have some conversations that helps them. So not every nephew and nieces want to talk one-on-one, but a few like to talk to me, which I really like, because they say, hey, Aunt, I want to talk to you. I have some concern, and I have some, not necessarily issues, but this is something I'm thinking. What do you think? So that kind of question, they approach me that way. I don't know, I'm just so delighted. So that kind of conversations as well.
They gave me this strange...
and then time to time we go to karaoke.
Or
family.
For singing and dancing. I thought if we have some free time, we're going to ask her to sing and dance. No. Maybe. Do you know that a lot of people are saying that you are, among the Korean scientists, the closest to receiving the Nobel Prize?
That's not true. That's far away from the fact.
But why are people talking about this? Is it because of the significance of the research that you're doing, the rarity, or why do you think people are talking about this?
No, I think they just pick, one person, that person at a given time, they focus on it. But I happen to be, in some cases, maybe it's around time that I got Hwang Prize. that maybe people started talking about it. But it's, you know, I really, you know, we don't do science to get prize. It's just, I think important thing is we have to, many people have to do good research. And we don't even know where the breakthrough and surprise come, because it's nature knows, but we don't. That's why we needed research. And I do one thing, and I don't know whether I'll get any breakthrough. Same thing, some other scientists do in other areas. Whether we get something big surprise and it's a big breakthrough happen, nobody knows. So we have to really try and you know, covering large spectrum of research, not just focusing on, just bet on one area and we have to just do it. That's in each one institution you may do that because you don't have enough people and infrastructure, so you may pick one thing which they think is the most important and critical. You can focus on that. But as a nation, we really have to cover broader spectrum of research because we don't know where surprises will come from.
You said that you're now moving to stronger and stronger facilities that have more power. Tell us a little bit about the current research that you're doing, and maybe so even a sociologist like myself can understand what you're doing, and what kind of breakthrough or issue that are you sort of pursuing or topic? I don't know. Yeah.
So I mentioned that the building blocks of the object that we can see in you and me and around us, there are up quarks and down quarks and electrons. And what we also have found is that because we have a lot of energy from the accelerators, the particle beams, they carry a lot of energy. And I said that with that energy, we can create the conditions very close to the beginning of the universe, when the universe is very tiny and high energy, high temperature. At that time, there are particles which we don't see them now in nature, but exist at that time. So because of that energy that the accelerators provide us, we can make those particles. So we discovered not only up quark, down quark, and there are 4 more quarks: top quark, bottom quark, trump quark, and strange quark. There are 6 quarks. Not only electron, but kind of electrons, but the more massive, the particles like muons and taus, and particles like neutrinos. These are extremely light, about 1,000,000 times lighter than electrons. We have seen that, and we discovered quite a bit. And then also the question we had, one of the main questions we were going after at Large Hadron Collider was that there are a lot of these particles have their own mass. Top quark is 1,000,000 times heavier than electrons, and things like that all over the place. So the question is how these particles, these building blocks, acquire mass. So who gave this mass to them? So that was a big question, and in the discovery of the Higgs boson at Large Hadron Collider. So Higgs boson is responsible for giving mass to these particles. So we did that. So we have a very nice now current theory called the Standard Model, based on all the discoveries that we have made and all the observations of all the properties of these particles. So this looks beautiful. However, this theory and has a problem. There's some questions cannot be answered by this theory. For example, the top quark is 1,000,000 times heavier than electrons, and electrons are 1,000,000 times heavier than neutrinos. Then we say, why do they have that mass value? I mean, you know, we measure their mass, but who said that that has to be the right number? So why question? Why there are 6 quarks? Why not 2? Why not 10? So why there are many of why questions. Another one is that when you have a lot of energy, we create at the laboratory particles and it's antiparticles. So these particle antiparticles, they are the same kind. The only difference is electric charge is opposite. So then when you see particle and antiparticle meet together, they annihilate. So that's the relationship between particle and its antiparticle. So we've seen a lot of antiparticles. So with that, we can conclude that at the beginning of the universe must be same amount of matter particles and antimatter particles. However, if you look around our universe, we don't see antiparticle. So the question is then, what happened to the antiparticles? So, and then there are more questions, like if you look at the galaxy, which is, there are quite a few of them are rotating. So this rotation, that motion is due to gravitational force of a mass of that galaxy. But based on all the things that we can see, like stars and dust in the galaxy, we cannot come to that speed. There must be some other mass, but we don't know what that is. We call it dark matter because we have any other name, better name, dark meaning that we are clueless. So that kind of thing is not part of our theory. So there are many why questions and dark matter questions, all that. So this is still has to be understood. So we have to go and further to answer why and what dark matter is and that kind of questions remaining, and we have to continue.
What is, in that research, what is your particular focus at the moment?
So my at this moment, so if we want to have a better, more elegant and complete theory than current theory, we have to have something new. It's not shown by the observations now. My focus right now is using the Higgs boson, which we just discovered. We can study that Higgs boson. So in a way that a lot of why questions, things like that, to my mind, these particles that we observed, they are the messengers of telling the story, why kind of story. So if you study the properties of these behaviors of these particles, then we may have a clue of what the new things, new physics might be. So right now I'm studying Higgs boson and their Higgs boson's property, trying to listen to Higgs boson and whether that can tell me, hey, look, this might be the new theory and this might be new physics. And not only Higgs particles, the properties, but also I just want to see whether Higgs particles connect to dark matter. So maybe dark matter has a mass, and I said the Higgs boson is responsible for giving mass to quarks and electrons, all that. Then who is responsible for giving mass to dark matter mass? So my interest is that maybe Higgs is the one to giving mass to dark matter.
Now I want to study physics. I thought so sciences was very difficult, but it's really fascinating listening to the way that she's showing her passion and interest on these topics. I know we have very limited time, and there's I have a whole list of questions, but I want to turn to some questions that were posed to you in the online website called On-Off Mix. There were some students who left some questions. From 1 to 5, which number do you like the best?
I like prime number 3.
3. Okay, number 3, it's the shortest question, good. Anne, could you tell us a little bit about any failures since you graduated with a PhD and while you were on the job market?
Failure. While I'm job market, when I was looking for professor positions, and the first time I was trying to, I was in the short list, and usually, each university, there are a lot of applications, and they pick based on all the materials they have. They pick a few people, and they invite them for interview. So I went to the first interview. I don't know, I was very nervous, but also very exhausted, flying over. So I didn't know I should have gone one day before and relaxed a little bit, but this was the first interview. So I thought I'll just come there early in the morning, and then I come back and continue my research. So it was a little bit too much, and this very senior professor during interview, I dozed. So he was asking questions, and I couldn't remember what that was. So that I failed getting. But have some experience like that, and the following year I was very successful. So again, I did not prepare myself. So the first interview was a disaster.
Tell us a little bit about other failures. Maybe I can expand on this question and say, what was your most challenging moment and how did you overcome it?
You know, in terms of the science, of course, doing research itself is you know, requires a lot of endurance. You know, people think that you have to be smart and brilliant and you have to do the good science. I mean, that helps, but to me, the passion and persistence. You have to love the daily process. Daily process is very mundane. You know, you do maybe do a little bit of progress, not big, and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is the process, and you are not discovering every day. Big discovery, if it happens once a decade, you have big success. So people who really love the process, even though the small step, even though you don't make any steps, but you tried whether that works or not, that if you are happy with it, you are satisfied, that's very important. What was your question? I lost my challenging. So now I know that in either technical solutions or scientific solutions and all that, you know, you do your best. You know, that's something that you expect and you get it done. To me, the biggest one is the humans, people. I mean, I played dealing with the leadership role in many ways. And now I'm chairing the physics department at the University of Chicago. So I'm dealing with the mostly human deputy director time, also a team leader for CDF collaboration with the 600-700 particle physicists. It's all humans are much harder in a sense that you cannot predict. And especially, most people are good intention, but humans are very different. So I say one way, approach them one way, not realizing people get totally different idea, impression, and attacked. Some cases, I feel like I'm attacked. So that's kind of become emotional and very hurting in many ways because I was not intending, but people look at it. So it's very important, always learning myself. Communication is very important. And then also, you have to also think the other person's shoes. Because you think of, when you say things, you think of yourself, how you feel it. But you are not in their shoes, so you don't know. And the one thing that I'm actually good at is that if I have these emotional issues with the human relations and all that, and I feel like that person may not be fair and all that, I'm upset, obviously. But the following morning, I'm totally fine. I totally forget, and I just go back to that person, hey, let's get it work together and figure out how to do it. So that recharging, maybe gardening help, or who knows what helps, but really refreshing my mind and not just stick to bad things, sort of make your life harder.
In Korean, this is right? The Koreans understand, right? Okay, with that, I'm going to open it to the floor. I know many of you have been very patient and wanted to ask some questions. So if you raise your hand, I will ask the microphone to be delivered to you. Any questions? No brave questions? Oh, they're very strange. They're not asking questions. Really? Going once? Twice?
Oh, up there.
Okay. There.
Hi, I would like to ask a question. What makes you keep motivating as a scientist in STEM field? And what was most challenging experience as a woman scientist?
So I learned that I could understand the second part of what was the most challenging as a woman physicist, but what was the first part of your question?
What makes you keep motivating as a scientist?
Keep motivating. I enjoy doing, and I said that the process is very important of doing the research. So that process I'm really enjoying. So I'm small step every day, and they kept me motivating. And also dealing with the students, that's young generation, and I have quite a few students and postdocs from undergraduate to graduate and all above. And there are quite a few women too in my group, and just helping them, and we're struggling together, come up with ideas, and just watching them also really motivating me keep doing because I care for new generation, next generation. And as a woman, to be honest, when I was a student, and people may say things, this is not for women and all that kind of stuff, but I don't pay attention, and I just very selective in terms of what's good for me, what's the best medicine for me. If anything, it's not good for me, I just tend to ignore. So that, in a sense, helped because I didn't really uptight about it and use my time and energy to worry about that. But now, however, now I'm have a student, the next generation, I'm just mentoring, and I care their concerns. So I pay much more attention to what's going on, how to help them as a woman scientist now than when I was a student or post or a young faculty. So I don't feel, I'm sure there are things, again, even personal things I told you about. In some cases, you wonder, okay, my husband is also good for me to have a conversation. And when I have this tough time, I come to him and say that, this person said this way and attacked me on this way, that way. And then he goes, I wonder if you were a man, that person said that kind of stuff and treated you like that. So it's very subtle. You never know, right? Because this is not an experiment. That's a human. So may or may not be true. So it's wondering about that. And again, those things could be very subtle. So this kind of daily issues like that, I know in some cases technicians who don't know me, they think I'm not a professor. They just assume that I'm, nobody. But again, I cannot really blame them. So there are two ways. I would say, okay, that really bothers me. I want to go and fight. That's one approach. Another approach is, politely going in some other conversation such that make sure that he knows who I am through conversations. So either way, I tend to be the other way so that tend not to get upset. Because if you're upset, actually use your emotion and your energy, and I try to save that energy for myself. So I'm very selfish in that way. So I'm pick and choose. So that helps me get going better, instead of worrying too much. Of course, we worry a little bit, but.
You were the deputy director of Fermi Lab, right? Were you, or was it necessary to have any sort of programs or ways to help women scientists? Were there in a minority at the time? Were there things that you established within the institution so that it became more gender sensitive and equitable place?
Yeah, certainly, I was a deputy director there, and soon after that I came back to university and I'm chairing department. So both cases, if you are the leader, you can do a lot of things. Actually, it was a little bit easier for me to put programs at the university, in the department, because at the national lab, people already rather senior. At the university, I'm dealing with undergraduate students and higher, so there are more programs that I can establish. So both cases, anyhow. So one of my key concerns and to make sure that we improve is the diversity and inclusion and equity. So we have a lot of dialogues and discussions. Doing itself, somebody pays attention to those concerns and start conversation, and I get a lot of positive responses. So that's that. And another thing that I'm doing at the university now, and I have a number of programs, especially the undergraduate students, women. I got the grant from the Haijang Simons Foundation and supporting all the women undergraduates in research. So this summer I have 20 students put in different research groups. So I continue that. So my goal is every woman students in the undergraduate, they will get some research the activities. So another thing is, I told you about earlier, we are all brainwashed that if you think about scientists and physicists, especially physicists, that people think about Einstein with the hair like that. And that's wrong, and because we already see pictures. So at the University of Chicago, what I've done is that the Maria Gopelmayer, who is a nuclear physicist, and she got Nobel Prize in 1963. She came to University of Chicago as a professor, and she did the work on so-called nuclear shell model. I showed you about how protons and neutrons behave within nuclei. So that's her new theory, and they came up, and she got Nobel Prize for. So there are only 2 women who got Nobel Prize in physics, and one of them is associated with University of Chicago. Yet we have not recognized her. One is, by the way, Marie Curie. Everybody knows. Marie Koppenmeier, somehow people don't know. So what I've done is that we have a big lecture hall at the university. I named that Maria Koppenmeier Lecture Hall, and then in front, the wall, and I put her face, literally this big, 2 of them, and then also her work, a lot of photos from her daughter to research work and original papers that she got Nobel Prize for. So I have that photo, 2 big photos with other working and the family photos. So my idea is every student who comes to University of Chicago, they have to go to the lecture hall like 1,000 times. If it's a boy and girl, and all of them get to see 1,000 times their face, then they stick to here. So I'm brainwashed there, cleaning their brainwashed brain, so that now after that, my idea is that if they think about scientists or physicists, that there's some part of their brain just automatically comes to our mind. So this is one example, but I have a lot of programs for women and minority at all levels.
Great, thank you. President Kim Seon-wook, when she was president, she said she spent a lot of time trying to build STEM fields, and she said EWHA would be the home to the first Nobel Prize in sciences. So there's a strong connection here. Can we have one last question from the floor? Yes.
Hi, I'm a student in EWHA Women's University. I wonder, you said you met a lot of various people in the world. So, there's various characters. So if you met some students who are really disappointed themselves well, then how you recommend them? How you encourage them?
So I think it's good to analyze. So it's a conversation is good, and where that depression or there's not they're disappointed about themselves. That's what you said. So in that case, conversations with that. That's what I usually do, and where that the feeling comes from. And some cases, often actually, it's not based on facts, because they feel like I'm not good at it. They feel some cases are not competitive, and the pressure is too much. So various reasons. But understanding the source is the first, what we have to find out. And again, if either study or doing research, it's really endurance. If you are not, again, everybody is different. So you have to find what you, what you like. Some students, it doesn't matter how bright and brilliant they are, if they are not interested in really continuous, very small steps are very important for them, this may not be their field. So I think understanding who they are, whether this is the right place for them, or maybe they have to find something else better suited for them. That's another way. So it's more dialogue is a very, to me, it's a first step to give any advice. Because without knowing, I don't know how to give good advice. So by conversation, actually, they themselves often find their own solutions.
I want to join you in thanking Professor Young-kee Kim for sharing actually her life story, not just the work that she does as a scientist, but to get a much fuller picture of her. And I think this is a rare opportunity to hear what goes on behind. And who knew this world-famous scientist was a dancer or a singer? So we're so honored that you were frank and open about your life, about your work, and about your passion. And I hope this is not the first time, but last time to EWHA or to Korea to make sure that you come back many, many times to converse and communicate and inspire us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.